It's time for the fifth quarter with Brendan Slaughter. The fifth quarter is presented by Coors Light, Mountain Cold Refreshment, Juice Chill. Celebrate responsibility. 620 Rip City Radio, your home of the Portland Trailblazers.
Welcoming you back into Moda Center. Brendan Slaughter with you here for the fifth quarter. Thanks for tuning into the show. The Blazers bounce back, and boy, did they bounce back in the biggest way possible, folks. A blowout win over the Charlotte Hornets. Blazers were equal parts blazing on offense and on defense, keeping Charlotte at bay. This was Portland's highest or biggest margin of victory, 53 points in franchise history. A lot to dive into tonight here on the fifth quarter. Again, Brendan Slaughter coming to you from Section 111 here at Moda Center, where the Blazer faithful have filed out. And, talk about a win tonight. I mean, you go back to a game against the Lakers. We talked about it in the pregame last game where Portland looked a little rusty early, and then they were able to find their stride, and the Lakers were just a little better in the fourth quarter. Well, to quote a very famous meme recently, it's almost like the Blazers took that personally, folks, because they came into tonight's game, and it was early back and forth. I think Charlotte actually had a lead of this game, 4-3, whatever it was. And then the Blazers just absolutely took off in this game. We'll be breaking it down, but just looking at it quarter by quarter, I mean, Portland racks up 38 points in the first quarter to Charlotte's 21. Blazing. I mean, Anthony Simons comes out, Toumani Camara comes out and is very impressive, picking up LaMelo Ball, full court, very first possession. That set a tone. We talked about LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges and what those two can do for the Hornets, and Toumani Camara set the tone early, right? He picks up Ball, half court and makes him work for everything. LaMelo ends up going 1 of 10 from the field, 0 of 4, just 5 points for LaMelo, and obviously that was something we talked about going into the game. The Hornets kind of go as LaMelo and Miles Bridges go. So that was obviously huge early. Anthony Simons had 7 points in the first quarter. After his slower game the other night, he gets back into rhythm and ends up having a really good day by the time it all gets said and done. Denny with a quick 10 points early. Moving to the second quarter, the Blazers pushed the lead out even more. They pushed the lead to over 20 and pretty much were able to maintain that 20-point lead and then extended it to nearly 30 before the halftime break. You go to half, Simons had 22 points, including 4 made threes. He couldn't miss in that first half. He looked really good, and, the Blazers took it to the Hornets, right? We talked about how the Blazers would need to match the Hornets just three-point, volume. The Hornets maybe don't have the best percentage, but they're going to launch a lot of threes, and Portland did a great job of matching it with their own threes tonight. I mean, we go back to some of our keys to the game tonight going in. Most of them were spot on, right? I mean, we talked about get the backcourt going, right? Anthony Simons had just 8 points against the Lakers, Shaden 11, Scoot 12. We talked about the backcourt. Tonight, let's talk about 25 for Anthony Simons, 5 threes. You throw in Shaden Sharp dropping in 20 off the bench, Scoot Henderson with 13 off the bench. Delano Banton didn't score, but he still had 2 assists off the bench. And arguably the guy off the bench other than Shaden that deserves a shout-out is Jabari Walker, man. I mean, coming into this game, we thought Rob Williams would probably play and be the number 2 behind Donovan Clingan, but it ended up being that Robert Williams was held out for some inflammation in that left knee. Jabari Walker ends up picking up the lion's share of those minutes, and he ends up playing 26 minutes in kind of that small ball center role to Donovan Clingan's 20 in the starting lineup, and Bari goes for 20, 14, and 2. Just an impressive night for Jabari. So there was the bench production we talked about. Another key we discussed was Melo and Bridges. Got to keep those guys locked down. They combined for just 22 points on 7 of 25 shooting. Then we mentioned bench points. Blazers ended up tallying 65 on the night, and then three-point shooting, Blazers hit 23s to Charlotte's 5. So for a team that likes to shoot the three, the Blazers definitely made a statement tonight. We heard from Chauncey back in the pregame press conference, and you could tell he was still a little fired up about how the Blazers rebounded against the Lakers the other night. And, he talked about things like effort and heart and, not necessarily needing to be the biggest or tallest guy on the floor, just wanting to, effort and all those things. again, Charlotte, pretty good rebounding team coming into tonight. They were the 5th best in the NBA. Portland checked in 15th. Blazers won that rebounding battle 57-37 tonight. So, again, just dominant production for the Blazers. And, we mentioned to halftime, Blazers opened up a 33-point halftime lead. It was 73-40 at the half. And I'm curious if any of you who were here at Moda Center or watching at home kind of had the same feeling that we did, which was, I'm sitting up here watching the game and, pretty good back and forth early first quarter, and you see the Blazers go on a run, the Hornets go on a little bit of a run too, and then you blink and you're like, okay, it's 20. You blink again, it's 30. You blink again, it's 40, and you blink again, it's 50. I mean, again, to think that tonight was the biggest margin of victory in Trailblazers history. And we're talking 50-plus seasons, many, many years of basketball, and as Travis Demers mentioned, lucky fan, his wife turned 53 today, and, he made sure to go mention that. And I think everyone at Moda Center, when we got the email from Rich Patterson, who's the Blazers' Mr. Do-It-All, he sent out a list of all the biggest margins of victory in Trailblazers history. And, prior to tonight, again, 53-point win over the Hornets, it was 1982. November 21st, 1982, the Portland Trailblazers took down the Cavs by 50 points. I mean, 1982, folks. I mean, that's Bird Magic prime right there. I mean, that is a long time ago. So that's really cool. And, for Portland just to do that in their second game back from the All-Star break and to do it while they're chasing a play-in berth, I mean, you've got to like what you're seeing from this Trailblazer team, folks. I mean, coming into this year, no one knew exactly what kind of a year it would be. And, I was talking with Sean Hyken, the Rose Garden Report author and Rip City Radio correspondent, during the game. And we obviously talked to him pregame here on the 5th quarter. Talking to him, like the fact that Portland now has a 53-point win the same season they have couple 40-point losses. You talk about how this season began in that Utah game and that Memphis game to where we are now. And, I got to give Twitter a shout out too for saying I couldn't remember the last time that Portland had, 4 players 20 or better in the starting lineup. Got to give assist to the Trailblazers broadcast. Tumani Kamara finished with a plus 45 and plus minus. That's ties the Trailblazers franchise record. LaMarcus Aldridge did that back during his playing time, but again, just like numerous good things that you can highlight in this matchup, and just diving a little deeper into the stats themselves. The Trailblazers obviously outshot the Hornets 58% to 34%, 46.5% from three-point line for Portland to just 15%, as we mentioned, from Charlotte. There's one little tiny area, if you're a Blazer fan, you might want to nitpick in this game. It's maybe the free throw shooting. That was something we highlighted in the pregame against the Lakers, and then tonight, 19-27. Obviously, not going to burn you though in a night like this when you're able to rack up 53 points. And I mean, for those who were here watching at home, I mean, I'm sure they felt the same way that I did. I mean, after about halftime, it felt like the Blazers were the cat and the Hornets were the mouse, and they were just doing whatever they wanted, whether it be offense, defense, getting three-pointers. They didn't stop. There was never any let up off the gas. I mean, the Blazers, like I said, racked up 37 assists tonight. I mean, that means you are sharing the sugar, getting the ball moving a lot. So that's definitely something to be excited about for the Blazers too. And, ultimately, this is just a big step in the right direction. We're going to be, breaking it down more, but, to see everybody involved in this game. Like, it wasn't just one guy. It wasn't just two guys. To have that many guys, chipping in, I think of a guy like Jabari Walker. Like I said, we mentioned him earlier, but what he did tonight, I really zeroed in on him in the second half. He seemed to be getting a lot more kind of run than, Donovan Clingan when he picked up a few fouls kind of in that stretch run, the third, fourth quarter. And the thing I loved most from Bari was his toughness. He was diving on the floor, going after loose balls, and just the aggressiveness and toughness. And then just I'm going to go right at Yusuf Nurkic for about 3 possessions I found pretty entertaining. Nurk isn't looked at as one of the better defenders in the NBA by any means, but he's still pretty solid, and he's got some size on Bari for sure. And there were a couple times where Bari was able to go right at Nurk and get some nice layups off the glass, and you could just tell he really wanted this. He made a big stat sheet. He really wanted to make an impact tonight. And when you're talking about a guy like Bari who, didn't see the minutes when, you're giving Klingon more and Rob Will more, and ultimately when DeAndre Ayton was healthy, it's just great to see from Jabari, who gets a season high in points. And then we, get to wrapping up the fourth quarter where, going in, maybe the Blazers would have, emptied the bench. The score would have gotten a little bit more, manageable from the Hornets' perspective. But no, I mean, the Blazers just kept their foot on the gas. We mentioned Bari Walker having 11 points, or Bari Walker having his big night. He had 11 of those points in the fourth quarter, and, Blazers lead 47-43. It just continued to balloon until we ultimately got to the 141-88 victory. Again, some of the big standouts for stats: Anthony Simons, 25 points, goes 5 of 10 from 3. Denny Avdia's 15 points, a little quieter than last game against the Lakers, and he made his biggest impact there in the first half. Tumani Kamara, 20 points, 10 boards, 6 assists. It's his first 20, 10, and 5 game of his career. Shaedon Sharpe goes 4 of 7 from 3 for 20 points. We mentioned Bari's 30 and 14. And, Bari's 20 and 14. Excuse me, typo there on my part. And, you talk about everything else, right? There was almost nothing that the Blazers did wrong tonight. I mean, you're talking 21 second chance points, 36 fast break points. We talked about the bench points they racked up. And now you're just 5 games out of the play-in. I mean, we talked to Sean Highkin earlier in the Blazers game day about kind of what he thought the Blazers kind of MO would be down the stretch. Do you think it would be getting more run for the young guys, getting some more run for, reducing the minutes of the veterans to get those young guys more run, or if it's still kind of, all steam ahead, chase after this play-in? And, what Sean said is they're going to chase it. And you look at, what they did before the All-Star break, that stretch. Obviously now you snap a 4-game skid coming into tonight, so the Blazers get back in the win column in that regard. And looking at the standings, right, they trail the Spurs by a few games in the loss column, not the win column, as they both have 24 wins. Phoenix, you're trailing by 3 games, and then Sacramento in that 10th spot. Blazers are trailing by just under 5 games. So that is, something worth keeping an eye on, because for better or for worse, and we've talked about draft picks and all those things. And, I've mentioned, I think that, while this team is playing better, that stuff will probably take care of itself, and it will all, end up as it's supposed to. But who doesn't like winning? I mean, folks, like this was just only a few times that I've been to Moda this season. I'm trying to remember if it's my 3rd or 4th. Most times your boy is back at the Rip City Radio studios holding the fort down for Chris Burkhart and company. But just being here and then, like, walking in and as I'm reflecting on this game, looking back and saying, well, goodness, ho-hum, just saw the Blazers' biggest win in franchise history by point margin, and I don't think that's anything to scoff at. Even in a season where, they might be fighting for the play-in, they're still proving some things, still, getting guys, figuring out where the guys fit, long-term fits, all those things. So talk about, like I said earlier, where the early parts of this season were. You're talking about those big losses to where we are now. I think it's tremendous growth. I think the Blazers and the team, they definitely have something to hang their hat on. I know the Tankathon folks out there continue to grit their teeth, but you almost have to acquiesce and say it's just much more fun to win, folks. I mean, it really is. And I don't think it's something you can take for granted. And I think, it's something that, Blazer fans have been itching for, for a couple seasons of being down now. So that's definitely something exciting to think about for the future. But we'll go ahead and take our first break here on the 5th quarter. When we come back, we'll have Shot of the Night, Drive of the Night. We'll also be hearing from Chauncey Billups a little bit later. Feel free to join the conversation, 503-248-0620. You can jump on, talk to me about the game tonight. You can also jump on YouTube and join our chat there. Again, Portland with the big win tonight, folks. They take down the Charlotte Hornets 141-88. That's a 53-point victory, the biggest in franchise history, breaking a record way back from 1982. So, again, we'll be back here on the fifth quarter. This is Brendan Slaughter. Portland takes the victory tonight, 141-88.
Loose ball, offensive rebound to Monty Kamara. Throws it up top to Avdia. Ball faking a drive, kicks it out to Scoot, launches a three-pointer and hits it. 10-point Blazers lead. It's an 11-0 run. Sharp bounces off of Moore, back up top to Walker, slips through, puts it up, lays it in. There is 1,000 career points for Jabari Walker.
Welcoming you back into the fifth quarter here from Section 111 at Moda Center. Brendan Slaughter alongside my partner in crime, Michael Shacker, as the Moda faithful have long cleared out, and now we're cleaning up the streamers from the end section. So an exciting night here at Moda Center as the Portland Trailblazers come away with a big 141-88 win over the Charlotte Hornets. And again, as we mentioned in the first segment, there wasn't much that didn't go Portland's way tonight, folks. I mean, you really have to dig into the box score to even find someone who didn't play well in this matchup. And, you know, you could make an argument that most everyone who did play played pretty solid. I mean, you know, Jeremy Grant only had 8 points. He went 3 of 10, so a little bit of an extended slump for him. But, you know, after missing some games in the All-Star break, I expect him to get back into rhythm soon. Then off the bench, you know, Chris Murray only had 2 points, but he only played 16 minutes. And then Ryan Rupert had 2 points in 9 minutes. Delano Banton didn't score. But outside of that, I mean, the body language, the energy in Moda, it was almost one of those things where I question a little bit how much Charlotte wanted to be here tonight, and especially when the Avalanche started, you could kind of tell that it was a when it rains, it pours kind of situation for Charlotte. But, you know, looking at the Hornets, let's dive into what they look like. Miles Bridges ended up being the leading scorer with 17 points. Just 3 boards, 3 assists. We talked about his ability to fill up the stat sheet. He did not, you know, in the same way that he's accustomed to recently. Mark Williams, we talked about him looking decently healthy out there. 10 points. Nick Smith Jr. chimes in 14. And then our old friend, Jusuf Nurkic, 11 points off the bench, 8 boards, 5 assists, even made a 3-pointer. And, you know, like I said, now that, you know, enough time's passed, you know, it's nice to see, you know, Nurk getting a chance to play, especially after things kind of went sour in Phoenix with Budenholzer and that whole situation. And it's good to see, you know, him carving out a role with the Hornets. So he chimed in 11 points and was the Hornets' 3rd leading scorer tonight. So something to keep an eye on there. And then also for the Hornets, Saloon finished with 6 points, Diabate with 5, Seth Curry, remember him, folks, former Trailblazer, 2019 vibes. He finished with 6 points, did not make a 3-pointer, though, so that is worth mentioning. He goes 0 of 5 from beyond the arc. Wendell Moore Jr. also added in 8 points for the Hornets, but also want to jump over to the YouTube chat because it was mentioned by Han in King City, you know, that he mentioned, thank goodness Charlotte picked Saloon and not Klingon, and I think now that you can kind of look at the, you know, it's not always that it's usually kind of the opposite. A guard will sometimes develop a little bit faster than a big man. And, you know, we talked about obviously Klingon falling into the Blazers, you know, lap there at 7. And I think they were thrilled with that pick. And, you know, Saloon could end up being a decent player. But, you know, at this point, you know, still looks pretty raw in his career. And, you know, we've seen guys like that who have gone at the top of these drafts or near the top of these drafts purely on athleticism and potential there for sure. So, you know, lots of love there. And, you know, there's, as I mentioned, it just, Blazer fans, Chauncey Billups, the whole team just has to feel thrilled about just the vibes that you're got going on right now. I mean, you know, like I said, going back a couple months ago, it was up and down. You were looking at what kind of lottery odds you would have, and you know, now for the first time in a couple seasons, you know, whether it comes to be or not, the fact that the Blazers are in a position to fight for the play-in, I think is pretty exciting. I mean, you know, you look across the league, there are some bigger disappointments, like, you know, the fact that the Blazers are several games up on the 76ers continues to baffle me. Like, how the 76ers are that bad with that much talent. It's shocking. So when you see the Blazers, start to figure some things out and start to make a run, and then you see the depth that they have, the defense that they have, if they were to get on a run, make the play-in, I don't know if I would count against them. But as Travis and Curtis Long said on the network post game, there are some tough teams coming up on the schedule, right? I mean, you look, and there's been some winnable games, but you got Utah, Washington. Obviously, those aren't the ones we're referring to, but on this road trip coming up, you've got Cleveland, you've got Philly. Well, not even so much Philly. You've got Boston, got Oklahoma City. Still have some upper echelon teams there, and we saw the Blazers go toe-to-toe with, a couple, I think back to Phoenix, winning those 2 games, about a month ago, less than a month ago, excuse me. Those 2 games were pretty big when they, narrowed the gap between them and Phoenix. And, you've still got a matchup with Sacramento. They're the team you're currently chasing for that 10th spot. And, I think you just kind of let it ride, right? It's like a good bet at like a blackjack table. You just let it ride and see what happens from there. And, you just have to love what you're seeing from these young Trailblazers who are just really starting to make moves. And going back over to the YouTube chat, Han drops another one. Has there been a team that's lost by 50 and won by over 50 in the same season? Good question. Believe the Blazers' losses, the big ones earlier this season, were in the 40s, if I'm recalling that correctly. And then to obviously have a 50-piece win later in the year, I think really shows the growth. So, that's something to keep an eye on for sure. And, more than anything, I think the Blazers they got to build on this, right? I mean, who knows how the rest of the season is going to shake out. And, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. We talked about Chris Burkhart and I. What's up, Chris? Hope you're doing well, my man. Appreciate the chance to fill in for you. Having a good time here with Shacker. We were talking, a week or so ago about, you just kind of see what happens, right? Everything will kind of fall in place as it needs to. And I think when you look at the box score, I think you really do get the best of both worlds as far as wanting to improve for the future and still winning in the here and now, because you talk about a guy like Toumani Camara, a guy like Denny Avdia, a guy like Donovan Clingan, Shaden Sharp, and Scoot. That is your core. And, I really think it's going to be exciting to see what they do. Donovan Clingan, we talked with Sean Hyken earlier in the show, thinks his conditioning is at a pretty good level, and we're going to start to see, more of him. Obviously, he plays 20 minutes from that center spot. He picked up, 4 personal fouls, but Bari ended up getting more minutes from that small ball center. So if Robert Williams doesn't play, which we know Rob Williams is kind of a hit and miss depending on that knee, I think it's going to be interesting to see that balance between Donovan Clingan and Jabari Walker. And, typically on most nights, you're not going to see a whole lot of, Duop Reith or, the Blazers going too much deeper into the rotation, Ryan Rupert, Delano Banton. But tonight, you were able to get everybody minutes. And then most importantly, that fourth quarter, you weren't putting anybody out there at, major injury risk in a game where you're absolutely crushing. So, it would be one of those situations where if somebody got dinged up in a game where you're leading by 40 and 50 in the fourth quarter and, maybe not even so much this year, but it impacted you at the start of next year, that's something the Blazers would definitely not be fond of. So, I appreciate, Chauncey emptying the bench, getting some other run. Duop Reith, only plays 11 minutes, but he gets 8 points. I love to see that from Duop. We talked about Scoot earlier. That 3-point shot, that is the secret sauce, I believe, for Scoot Henderson, because we know how well he can drive, how well he can dribble, how well he can make decisions on the fly, and how at times he can be a pretty good mid-range shooter and shooter around the basket. It's the 3-point shot that I want to continue to see grow from him, and the 3 that he made tonight, my goodness, they were perfectly in sync, online. They just look pure and smooth, and I think his 3-point shot is only going to get better. And speaking of 3-point shot, Shaden Sharp, looked really clean. He went 4-7 from 3, and a couple of his threes looked good. And for Shaedon Sharpe, it's the same thing, right? You just want to up his percentage a little bit because you like what you're seeing from him. Anthony Simons, as we mentioned, did most of his damage in the first half, but by that point, Portland had already broken out the big lead. So yeah, just a lot to like throughout this roster or throughout this lineup tonight. And looking at the box score, not one Blazer finished with a negative plus-minus, which shouldn't surprise you guys. The lowest was +6 for Ryan Rupert, +10 for Delano Banton, who didn't score, +8 for Duop. Plus-minus is one of those fun stats you love to look at when you win and maybe not caught them a little bit. But now you're seeing a Charlotte team that has 14 wins on the year. And coming into this matchup, you might not have thought there was a huge chasm between Charlotte and Portland as far as, success this season. But you look at it now, Portland has 10 more wins. Those 10 more wins feel like a million more wins as far as just how Portland just outclassed Charlotte across the court tonight. And I think that's, just something impressive for the Blazers to kind of hang their hat on in this season that's kind of had some good ups, some low downs. But, hey, you're always looking to build with a young team. Again, this is the fifth quarter presented by Rocky Mountain Coors Light, Mountain Cold Refreshment. Celebrate responsibly. I'm Brendan Slaughter here, section 111. We'll go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be getting to Chauncey Billups. We're talking Coach's Corner. We'll be giving out a game ball, and then we'll be putting a bow tie on this post-game show as Portland Trailblazers get a 53-point win over the Charlotte Hornets. They take the season series 2-0 after getting the Hornets back in Charlotte 102-97 earlier in the season. They really hammer them tonight here at Moda Center. So we still got a lot more to get to here on the fifth quarter. You can join. You want to chit-chat with me, get on here, 503-248-0620. Would love to hear from you. Also, feel free to drop any comments in the YouTube section of the Rip City Radio page, too. Would love to talk to you guys as well. This is the fifth quarter with Brendan Slaughter.
You know, we've definitely been on the other side of that too many times as a group. This is what I just told our guys, and it feels good to be on this side of it. It just feels good to see our guys have so much success, just playing the right way. You know, things we focused on at the start of the game is, one, our rebounding. Go plus 20 on the glass, which, you know, that's season high. You score 140, you're going to have a lot of season highs. Sharing the ball, you know, converting on the break. I sit up here a couple nights ago after our game saying, you know, just too many turnovers in transition. We got to be able to convert those. I mean, shoot, I think 27 fast break points in the first half. So just so many great moments for us. It all kind of came together. You know, we really worried about LaMelo. You know, Tumani did an incredible job on him. It wasn't just him, obviously, but it was his assignment. Everybody else that switched off on him, knowing that he was the head of the snake. You know, so defensively, I just thought we were there the whole night. Anytime you make 23s in this league, you're going to give yourself an incredible chance to score a lot of points. So we just was hitting on all cylinders, man. I'm just so happy for our dudes.
Did you know that this is the biggest margin of victory in franchise history?
Yeah, somebody told me that. Somebody just told me that. It's pretty incredible for such a storied franchise. And it's been, you know, this franchise has been around for a while, so that's a pretty incredible feat.
So no one knew during the fourth quarter, though?
I don't know if they did. I didn't know. But even if I did, I wouldn't have tried to keep pressing it for that reason, you know. I'm not that type of coach or person, but it is good to have some of those firsts, you know, and be on the positive side of those things.
You talked about Tumani's defensive game, but he also had 20 points and a plus-minus of plus 45. Just your thoughts on his all-around game?
It was awesome, man. It was awesome. It was incredible. I mean, he all three levels. I mean, he really did knock down threes. I mean, his offensive rebound, his finishing, moving without the basketball. You know, his next action stuff, which I'm trying to continue to make sure he gets better and better at. They tried everything on him. They put a 5 on him. They moved him all around, you know. And his playmaking, you know, he gets 6 assists in the game. So Two had an incredible all-around game today.
Was the triple-double, was that something you might have been wanting to press for a little bit, keeping him in there to get those 4 more assists?
No. You don't. You know. You hope that a guy has that type of stat line in a really close game, you know. But you don't. I just never believe that you chase those kind of things. Worst thing that happen, you get a guy banged up, you know, in a game that you easily has. He's in his second. He's gonna have plenty of chances at a triple-double in his career. So, no, I wouldn't do that.
Chelsea, what does it say about Tumani, just kind of following up on that he can be a guy who's your number one defensively, who can take on the defensive burden, and also have that offensive production? There's just not a lot of guys that can do both.
No, there aren't. And I think that this is, you know, his next level, and as he continues to get better and better, I loved more than anything the quality of shots that Tu was shooting tonight. You know, open threes, obviously, boom, always take them. He gets himself in trouble sometimes when he over-penetrates and he gets in the air off of one leg and tries these tough finishes. We're trying to make him better and eliminate some of those looks. He didn't do that tonight, you know, so I just thought his shot quality was incredible. Obviously, he's so efficient, but when Tu is a finished product at some point, I don't know when that's going to be because he's still very early in it, he'll be able to do both. He'll be able to score and impact the game offensively, as well as obviously we know how good he is defensively.
What do you think about Barry's game tonight? Season high in scoring and rebounds, and he was facing Nurkic or Williams, big guys, for most of the minutes he played.
Yeah, proud of Barry. Very, very proud of Barry. I mean, he, we obviously having Rob out and, you know, being a little shorthanded, you know, you feel like you can always throw Barry in there. He's going to have a positive impact. He's just so tough and so gritty. His rebounding, we need his toughness. He plays with an incredible amount of physicality on both ends of the floor. Even offensively, he's very, very physical. So I was proud of Barry. You know, I always tell him all the time, you never know when your chance is going to come, but you just got to be ready. Got to take advantage of it. And, I mean, he was awesome out there today. It was fun watching him.
Coach, you guys scored more, you mentioned fast break points, more than any of the teams scored in a half this season. What was working for you guys in regards to your ability to get out in transition?
Well, getting stops. You get stops, you turn them over, and you get stops. And then when you get rebounds, you just get out and go. I thought last game, one of the things that we focused on yesterday on film and even watching it is sometimes we get stops, we get the rebound, and we are just so happy to be running that we're running into each other, you know, instead of just running wide so that ball handler can actually have space to make the reads. And we did an amazing job tonight of running really wide, running to that three-point line or running to the basket for a layup. We were very decisive in our decision-making. So it's all of those things that go into it, Casey. I mean, you're gonna get stops at a very high level. I thought we sped them up a little bit, got them to turn it over. And the times that we had these 2-on-1s and 3-on-2s and 3-on-1s, we really capitalized on it tonight, you know. So I want us to keep getting better at that, and tonight was as good as we've been.
That was Portland head coach Chauncey Billups. Had to listen to all that press conference. As you know, you love to listen to the press conference when it's a win like that because it's a lot of things to be happy about. Again, Portland with a 141-88 victory. And again, just hearing from Chauncey Billups, you know, that's definitely an improvement compared to, you know, Chauncey we heard post Los Angeles. So again, you know, you're going to have ups and downs with a young team, but these young Trailblazers, man, I think they're starting to turn some heads. And you know, we talked to Sean Hyken earlier. I think there are several pieces you can be really excited about. I mean, Toumani Camara, Denny Avdi on the wing, those two guys, just awesome. It's great to see what they're going to be, and they fit the system so well. And then you talk about, you know, Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot Henderson, right? You know, those four plus again Donovan Clingan. You know, you're getting close to your core players, and to see the growth that they've had. And as I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, I don't know if I could tell you the last time 4 Blazers had 20 or more and they have a big win like this. I mean, I'm sure, you know, back in the heyday of, you know, the Damian Lillard era and whatnot, there were probably some performances like that, but it had been a while, and I think that's, once again, just something you kind of have to take a step back and enjoy the ride. So that's definitely something to be excited about, and these young Blazers are starting to turn some heads, folks, so it's get to a Blazer game before this season's out because you never know what you're going to get. You know, coming into the night's game, you know, you're like, okay, Portland should win this game against Charlotte, right? And no, the fans they didn't just win. The fans that were here were treated to something that's never been done in franchise history. So, you know, that can still happen in kind of an up and down year, so that's definitely exciting and lots to like. But I'll say this, as looking at the box score, I'm going to have a really hard time handing out just one game ball. Where are we going to go with the game balls tonight, folks? Let's go ahead and see. Toumani Camara could be a prime candidate. Jabari Walker, you know, I'm going to cheat, folks. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to give 2 game balls tonight, and that's just because I'm Brendan, and this is a 5th quarter fill-in, and we can give 2 game balls. So, nevertheless, we're going to go ahead and give one to Anthony Simons. He bounces back. He set the tone early, 25 points, and then I'm going to give the second one to Jabari Walker. You know, I really wanted to, you know, give my boy Toumani Camara some more love, and if I had a third, I'd give it to him, but got to give it to Jabari Walker, man. What he was able to do coming off the bench, 20 points, 14 boards, 2 assists, 2 steals, and like I said, just going right into his friend Yusuf Nurkic a few times in the paint was just really cool to see. Looks like we have one phone caller on. Let's go ahead and head out to the phone lines before we go ahead and wrap up the 5th quarter tonight from Moda Center. Welcome into the 5th quarter. Let's see who we got on the phone line. I believe that is my good friend Victor. Victor, nice to talk to you from the host chair tonight. You're on the 5th quarter. What you got?
Hi, thank you for your time and opportunity. Well, I'm from Turkey, you know. We have some Turkish player in the NBA. Anyways, you mentioned about the Hornets that they beat the Lakers. They caught them by surprise. But at that time, when they played Lakers, Doncic and, LeBron, both of them, they were playing. Doncic had more than 20 points, but the Hornets beat them. What I'm saying is this win, Blazer, is unbelievable. It's kind of blow my mind, my own mind. That's one thing. Another thing I want to tell you, my friend, is I see a kind of a big difference between the Lakers game and this game from the Portland. And I'll give you my opinion, then you can say your opinion. What I'm saying is, if the Blazers, the way they shot this today, they shot and they defended. But we cannot compare, Hornets with Lakers, But in a way,
Certainly.
because the Lakers, because the Hornets beat the Lakers, we can draw a little bit comparison, not total. What I'm saying is today the Blazers played much better, than the way I see it. They play much better. And I think, may I say that, I think one of the reasons the Blazers lost to Lakers because of LeBron James, they couldn't stop him, and he had more than 30 points. But why the Hornets? If they have a bad defense, why they stop the LeBron? But the Blazers couldn't stop the LeBron. That's my
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question, Victor, because, it's weird, right? Because you look back at that Hornets game, and I would almost chalk that game up to it being the first game out of the All-Star break. That was the only game on TV that night that was a makeup from the LA Wildfires back on Wednesday. That was the only NBA game that day, and I think it was fair to say the Lakers didn't really show up for that game, and LaMelo and, Miles Bridges had a big game, and I also agree with you, Victor. The Blazers, there's a massive difference between the Lakers and the Hornets, and you're seeing that play out on the court this season. But, I agree with you. I think they just looked sharper tonight. Obviously, you can't compare one to the other, but you go back to that first game a couple nights ago, I think it was just out of the All-Star break rust. And we talk about how the Lakers played the Hornets the night before. If it was the Lakers' first game out of the break with the Blazers, maybe something different could have happened. And, as we talked about with Sean, sometimes LeBron just gonna LeBron, man. I mean, it's what he does. And like we said earlier, like Toumani Camara frustrated him, and he still gets 40 and 10 or 11 or whatever it was. So, that's why they call him the king. So that's LeBron. But no, great stuff, Victor, and appreciate the call and the thoughts, because you've got to just give the Blazers a pat on the back, because last thing I'll mention is I was talking to Sean Highkin. I'm like, I don't care if it's the worst team in the NBA, which Charlotte is in that realm, and you're the best team in the NBA. NBA players are still NBA players. I know that they're sometimes different with talent and whatnot, but anytime you can rattle and rimrock a team like this, oh my God, in the NBA? I mean, this isn't college, folks. I mean, we see sometimes where it's like, okay, Duke is playing somebody and they just put a wallop on them. This is the NBA. Even the bad teams still have dudes. And for Portland to, just dismantle, try to find the right adjective, but just dismantle the Hornets in every way, shape, or form. I think that's just got to be something that the Blazers build on moving forward. Do you read too much into it knowing it's just one game over the Hornets? No, absolutely not. It's one game and you're on to the next, and the Blazers got a sizable road trip coming up, as we talked about. They've got Utah, Washington, Brooklyn, Cleveland, Philly, Boston, Oklahoma City. It's really simple as I look at this, folks. If the Blazers are going to chase this play-in, we're going to see them – let me rephrase. If the Blazers are going to make a push for the play-in, and, we know that's what they're doing, but if things start to break their way, we're going to need to see some wins over these, fringe teams. I'm not saying they need to, go into Boston or Oklahoma City and win, but, you look at that road trip, you probably need to get one of Cleveland, Boston, or Oklahoma City if you're going to chase the play-in, right? And that's assuming you can beat Utah, Washington, Brooklyn. So, this road trip, I think, is going to tell us a lot about how the season ends. And, more than anything, I think you just got to hand it to the Blazers tonight. give themselves a pat on the back. You get a big win. You send Charlotte back to Charlotte with, or rather, continue them on this road trip, I should say, with one of the worst losses in their franchise history. I didn't look at it on the other side. Obviously, I knew it was the Blazers' biggest win. I don't know off the top of my head if this was Charlotte's biggest franchise loss, but you considering the early days of their franchise when they were the then Charlotte Bobcats, some pretty rough times, so I wouldn't doubt that they got beat by 50 points at some point, but again, that's pure speculation. So, nevertheless, the Portland Trailblazers will be back in action on Monday, February 24th. The road trip kicks off at Utah. Chris Burkhart will be back hosting Blazers Game Day 5th quarter. Chad Dewing will be back for the network post-game show, and Michael Shacker will be back in producing. I will talk to you guys mid-next week when Chris and I are working the Washington game. So